Hey guys, what's going on? It's your boy LOZA. Today we're talking about Dark Magical Circle and how it gave our boss monster an actual effect. And he was all like, nice. But what does Dark Magical Circle do for the deck nowadays, and how many should we be playing? Well, I'm here to tell you, it's one. Now you can disagree with me on this, but I've been talking about playing one Dark Magical Circle for quite a long time now, as well as Eternal Soul. But I've got a bunch of stuff to compare Dark Magical Circle to. Let's get into it, shall we? Alright, so here you can see, I've got the theme of Dark Magician is relying on other cards, and isn't Circle a perfect example of that? So Circle, it misses its effect a lot of the time. It really just fails to add a card, or it adds an irrelevant card like Dark Magician, another Circle, or one of the 76 tier fucking 100 Dark Magician cards, am I right? There is the chance of adding Soul Servant, Magician Salvation, Eternal Soul, or Secrets of Dark Magic, which are nice, but remember they all need Dark Magician to be relevant. So you can see how the deck's a big puzzle. Let's move on to a card like Sky Striker Area Zero, which is essentially their version of Circle. But one, it's a field spell so they can grab it off Terraforming and obviously archetype searching cards. If this card is popped though, they get to summon Ray, which is crazy. Obviously, the interaction between Area Zero and Ray is crazy too. You target Ray, you chain the Ray effect to summon one of the Sky Striker links, and then you get the Area Zero effect still. It's absolutely nuts. So yeah, also this card says Sky Striker cards, so that means you don't have to just add a spell trap like Circle does. So you can see that Area Zero is kind of like a better version of Circle, you could say. Well, we're going to move along to Soul Servant, which I compare to Engage, and I do think that Engage and Soul Servant are actually quite similar. But this card sadly goes -1 if you don't have Dark Magician or Dark Magician Girl in grave. It can redeem itself. If you manage to have Mahad, Mana, DMG, or DM in grave, you can draw some cards, or you can send it off Souls to draw, which is nice, because if you have Souls with Soul Servant, you know you're always getting some draws. Just because you're sending a DM or a DMG with Souls, or a Mana, whatever you like to play. So, like, this card in theory could draw 4 one day, but it really won't right now, unfortunately. So let's compare it to Engage. Engage alone will always look for a card in the deck, even with 0 spells in the grave. That's really good. Not to mention that as soon as 3 spells are in the grave, we all know what happens. They get to add the card they want, and they get to draw an extra card. Now, of course, that's crazy, but what's more crazy is they have Kagari that can loop this back to the hand turn 1, and every turn past that, since Kagari's at 3 now. So that means they get to use Engage twice pretty much every turn, if they find a way to it turn 1. That is crazy, right? In a control deck like Sky Striker, that's absolutely nuts. And I would say Dark Magician's a control-ish deck too, so it's kind of lame that we don't have that kind of recursion. But Soul Servant's still a pretty nice card. But I want to say Sky Striker Engage, card good. I don't think anyone will disagree with that. Moving along, I'm going to look at some cards that I hate custom cards at the start. I'm very sorry that I had to make some. But I wanted to show you visually what I think we need in the archetype. We either need a card like a Link 1 that sets the circle from the deck for us, kind of like how Magician Salvation sets Soul. We need something to set it for us, because this card's outdated. The other option is we get a new version of it that's better, one that can add monsters, one that looks at maybe 5 or more cards. And the other thing we need is a Red Eyes Fusion style fusion card for Dark Magician. That allows you to summon Dragoon, obviously, and anything else for relatively no cost, just sending from deck and all that goodness. Here's a card that, this is a bit of a joke card, but I made this with the boys before the new support got announced, and I said, guys, we need a Rhoda, and they all agreed, we all need a Rhoda. This was my idea for a Rhoda. I just called it Dark Magical Dingus. We had a monster or spell trap that lists Dark Magician, and then for a bit of extra spice, I made this card identify as DM, DMG, Mana, and Mahad in the grave, so our Soul Servant would draw 4. It's something I think we could look forward to going forward. Not necessarily a card that does all 4 monsters, but maybe cards that pretend they're Mana or Mahad or DMG in grave. Kind of like how Dark Magician the Dragon Knight says it's DM in the grave. So yeah, while we've got a better search card than this, because the Ritual's really nice with prep, we do want some cards that identify as the other bricks in the grave, so we don't have to play those bricks, you know? Alright, one more comparison is another meta-ish deck. Sky Striker was a good comparison because it's a meta control-y deck that revolves around spells, and we do have a lot of spells. But here's a deck that I think is very close to DM as well. It's a fusion-based dark spellcaster deck. Doesn't that sound a lot like DM, hey? So, Here we can both see that Prep gets us to Magician of Chaos. Sorry, Illusion of Chaos. Illusion of Chaos gets us to Magician's Rod, and that's kind of the same for Alistair here. Obviously, we can play 3 and 3 and 3, so we've got 9, and sadly Terraforming's at 1, so they can play 1 and 3 and 3. So they've only got 7 ways to Alistair, but they could play like set rotation and other things. But anyway, that aside, Alistair's a better card to have multiple copies of because it has another effect too, while multiple rods isn't that good. But that's okay. Let's move along. Well, before we move along, we're getting to it. You can see Alistair's going to grab Invocation and then obviously become Artemis, and then you can mayhaps make a cheeky Mechaba, right? But if we look over here, Rod adds Secrets, and you can see that Secrets by itself doesn't do anything. Rod and Secrets do nothing as a one-card combo, right? We're looking at one-card combos here. Sorry, I should have elaborated on that earlier. But off one card, you can see that you could get your way from Terror to Magical to Alistair to grabbing Invo to Artemis to Mechaba, and that would be fine. Everyone knows this. It's pretty standard. The Dark Magician version of that gets us nowhere, which is kind of sad, and what I think we need to move forward as a deck. Our one-card combos, if you want to call them that, need to be better. Our linear plays need to be stronger. Now, I suggest that we get the Red Eyes Fusion here. That's the Dark Magician version, King of Games Fusion, if you will, that someone made on DB. And basically, this would let us play it from the hand, and we would summon Dragoon or Dark Magicians or something, and it would send the material from deck for 1, and it would allow us to do this if we've only played like Dark Spellcaster for the turn or something like that. Some restriction that doesn't really hit Dark Magician, so it doesn't get abused in other decks. So as you can see, the Invoked Engine then, after making a negate monster with 2500, which is, it's actually the exact same stats as DM, 25 and 21, which made me mad when I saw it originally. I'm like, this is just ripping off DM, but being better. So yeah, we've got Alistair going back to the hand and Invocation going back to the deck. And then Alistair obviously can be discarded for a negate for Mechaba, or it can be used in the damage step to boost Mechaba by 1000. Those interactions are just crazy as a fusion deck. And Dark Magician's problem is it kind of tries to be a fusion deck, but also a ritual deck, also a spell deck, also a trap deck. It doesn't know what it wants to be. So our way to get to a fusion means Rod has to grab Secrets. Then we just have to have a way to Dark Magician. And then the best thing we can make just off those cards is the Dark Magicians, which is really shit. Like, if you opened a way to Souls, you would probably not even go for Dark Magician, because you'd just summon Souls, have Rod search for any other card, maybe send that with Souls to get a draw, and then you'd probably just make Anaconda, right? Like, this is so bad, and the fact that this isn't a negate, this doesn't do anything by itself, really. Yeah, it can draw you a card, whoop-de-fucking-do. It has no protection. Yeah, it specials out DM and DMG when it dies, but that effect's really bad, guys. I know people like that effect, but honestly, if you're summoning this card a lot, I don't know what you're doing. You're probably going neg a lot. You can see, by doing this, we're losing 3 cards. We lost Rod, Secrets, and DM. To end on this, that might draw us a card. Wow. People are like, oh, you get to draw one. Who the hell cares? You just played 3 cards to get to it. It doesn't do anything. Oh, man. Dragoon, if this same combo got to Dragoon, that might be okay, but it kind of doesn't. 2 cards obviously gets you Dragoon. Rod or Souls will get you there. But anyway, let's talk more about Rod in this kind of instance. Instead of getting Secrets, obviously there's a lot of better cards you can get. So I've made a little tier list here of what I think is the best card to add off Rod. I'll start at the top and work the way down. So we've got Soul Servant. This is normally the card you want to grab because you can send it for a draw if you've already got like Circle and Eternal Soul and Salvation or whatever. If you've already got the rest of the pieces, you can just send this to draw and then banish it and draw more once you've resolved your Souls effect and your Anaconda effect that's put all your bricks in the grave. The other option, of course, is you can grab Salvation, because that means you've got Eternal Soul. And Eternal Soul is probably, I want to say, more important than Circle. That's why it's above it, for establishing the Dark Magician grabbing Rod back loop, if you will. That loop consists of summoning Rod, grabbing either Soul Servant or Salvation, linking Rod into Artemis, getting to Salvation if you didn't add it already, and then simply on your opponent's turn, before they attack Artemis or before they pass, if your traps negated their plays enough and they don't attack you, you just flip the Eternal Soul, summon DM, tribute DM, or Artemis, grab the Rod. As simple as that. And that just helps you establish Rod reoccurring. This also means you might have a way to Souls next turn you can actually play. So anyway, these are definitely your A tier grabs off Rod. Of course, if you already have them, feel free to go for something like these. And the problem is, like, if you have Circle, obviously, then you want to grab Eternal Soul, and if you have Eternal Soul, obviously you want to grab Circle. But the problem is you normally will never open these. And yeah, you could say, oh, Loza, but you play one of each. Like, of course you're not going to open them. You don't want to open these because they don't do anything on their own. I play them at 1. I play Eternal Soul and Circle at 1 because, like, think about it in a combo deck where you play Quick Launch at 3, right? Because you want to see it. A lot of those Dragon Link decks don't even play Tracer at 3 anymore because they don't want to see it. They want to see Quick Launch to summon the Tracer. And look, while that's a combo deck and this is a control deck, it's kind of the same principle of how those cards work. Circle doesn't get me anywhere the same way them normal summoning Tracer doesn't get them anywhere as a 1-card thing. Eternal Soul by itself does nothing. Circle by itself does nothing. Yeah, Circle might add me a card, but that's it. And it whiffs half the time anyway, which we've spoken about. It's not good. Some people say, oh, Loza, you build your decks wrong. Like, Circle should always be grabbing you a card. Like, you should have all Dark Magician cards in your deck. And I want to say that's very incorrect at a competitive level. Because if I have my Circle always resolving, what am I adding? I'm adding F-tier Dark Magician cards or E-tier Dark Magician cards to my hand. I don't want those fucking cards. Like, great, you made the Circle never whiff. That's amazing. But now it's just adding garbage. I'm literally adding discard fodder for Dragoon. Like, why would I want that? It's more important that I play hand traps, that I play powerful traps like Skill Drain, stuff like that, over playing Dark Magician cards like fucking Thousand Knives and shit like Dark Magic Expanded. So yeah, please do not suggest that I'm playing the deck wrong by playing, none of these Dark Magician cards that don't do anything. If you're playing the deck casually, that's fine. Play whatever the fuck you want, but don't critique my deck that's trying to compete in a competitive environment. Some people might say you shouldn't take this deck, into a competitive environment, and that's fine. But ever since we got Dragoon, I'm just like, yo, fuck that. We have Dragoon, like, we can push stuff. This is the best Dragoon deck because Turbo Dragoon is what we do, baby. It actually benefits us more with Circle and Eternal Soul, so change my mind. So anyway, we got a bit off topic there, but the point is, Circle and Eternal Soul at 1 because they're not starter cards. Rod starts stuff, kind of. We went over that. It kind of starts stuff. In a deck like this, Red Eyes Fusion's a better starter than half these cards. I know a lot of people hate that, but that's why I play 3 Red Eyes Fusion as well. But anyway, these cards don't do enough on their own to warrant playing them at more than 1, in my opinion. If I ever see multiple in my hand, I want to cry and die because they suck. Not to mention, if I ever want these cards, I will grab them off Rod or Soul Servant. People are like, oh, what if they pop your Circle or Eternal Soul? Soul Servant literally, people don't read the fucking cards. Soul Servant literally stacks cards from your deck, hand, or graveyard. I don't know why you do hand, but you can. Deck, hand, graveyard, guys. Deck, hand, graveyard. If your Eternal Soul and Circle get popped, as long as they're not banished, you can freaking add them back with your Soul Servant, which you should be playing at 3, by the way. So, in that case, Soul Servant acts as a pseudo copy of every card in your deck. I don't know why people are like, oh, you have to play 3 Eternal Soul and 3 Soul and 3 Circle. That's my opinion, and that's how I've been playing the deck for the past 6 months, and I think it works great. Now, in saying that, 2 Circle and 2 Eternal Soul, I think work just fine. If you were to play 2 and 2, I would say that's fine. These are good cards to play at 2 because we do want to see them. But I prefer to use that room for hand traps, okay? You got to understand, I want hand traps. Now, the only problem with playing this at 2 is you're opening the door to people who play it at 3. Playing these cards at 3 in 2021, like we're halfway through, we're past halfway through the year. We're nearly 2022. These cards came out in like 2013 or some shit. They fucking suck. They've aged terribly. They're absolutely bad for their age, and they're bad for the current format. I'm playing them at 1. I suggest you play them at 2 if you are skeptical of me playing them at 1. Michael and a couple of the other DM gods have been playing these cards at 2 for a while, and they quite like it. Some of them are even cutting to 1 as well, or at least 1 or the other. So 1 Circle, 2 Soul. I think it's mainly 2 Circle, 1 Soul, but you get the point. You can play with the ratio yourself, but definitely don't play 3 nowadays, please. Do not play 3. That room can be used for hand traps or honestly just traps in general. Anything is better, honestly. So let's move into the... Now we're getting to the cards that are pretty irrelevant. So don't mind me, I'm going to be talking a bit of shit about these. I like these cards, don't get me wrong, but a lot of them just require too much to get going. So Magician's combination can be cute, but as you know, needs a lot of setup. I kind of feel the exact same about our own fusion spell. I feel like it's a polymerization from the past. I feel like we could have got this card in 2010 and it still would have not been played. It's not that great. It being quick play is the best thing about it, and even then, it's just a lot of resources for no reason. Um, I honestly think if we're playing this, we may as well just play Super Poly. Like, I know that's kind of a neg, but that card at least interacts with the opponent's board and not our own, you know. Magician's Navigation's effect in Grave is so good, just the getting it to Grave's the problem, so for now, I'm just saying don't play it. It is such a good Grave effect, but I just don't think we can rely on it for now. Inheritance is in this weird spot where it wants us to play it as a fourth copy of Rod, but our other spells in the deck, like Soul's Servant and Circle, this wants to banish itself and this wants to stay on the field. So how are we getting spells in the grave in this archetype? We're not. This is where the deck's trying to be like Sky Striker, but we just not. We just don't put spells in the grave like they do. Illusion Magic's in this weird spot where if you open it with Rod, if you open Rod and Tomias, you can grab this and then, grab 2 DMs by tributing a Rod. Then you can summon Tomias and you can actually make Dragoon off 2 cards, which would be nice if Anaconda gets banned, but for right now, I think this card kind of sucks. Another redeeming factor about this card is it can dodge Imperm, it can dodge Veiler when you get Veilered or Impermed on Rod or Souls by chaining it, and they leave the field. Obviously, then they can't get negated, their effects resolve, and you get to add 2 DMs to the hand. So that's pretty nice, and we will play this card again maybe one day, but not right now. Bonds and any of the package you play with it, these cards are all weird, like they're very searchable in the deck. Dark Magic Attack's even searchable off Eternal Soul, so you could honestly play it in a matchup like Mystic Mine. I remember playing it against Mystic Mine, siding it in, and it was really good. But we have Harpies now too. That was before Harpies was back, so please just play Harpies. But Dark Burning Magic's a really interesting card. I obviously made my last video on it, and I do think it's good. But Bonds and Dark Burning are still just super, super weird and just clunky. And as I said, they rely on other cards to function, and we don't really like that. Anything down here in F tier or anything I haven't listed is just absolute garbage. I'm not even going to elaborate on it. Change my mind in the comments if you have to. But yeah, I think that wraps up about everything and all the reasons why I play Circle at 1. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. This is a long video. Catch you guys soon. Play your Circles at 2 or 1, and I will see you guys next time.